We are living in a world of celebrity chefs where hospitality is an esteemed profession. Our next guest is part of this phenomenon. Her brand new reality TV show on the Food Network is syndicated in 40 countries and is putting Vancouver on the culinary world map. Her story is remarkable. With little education, sent to Vancouver from India in an arranged marriage, she ended up as a single mother in a shelter, struggling to learn English. She took the one thing she had, the ability to cook, and launched herself into a remarkable journey to international celebrity. Please welcome Val Arneson.
You know, I thought judging for Iron Chef America would be hard. And here I'm standing here, I'm so nervous. It's such an honor and a privilege to speak in front of you. Vancouver is my home. People always think I live in New York and I live, LA, but this is my home. And I, after going to Napa, Boston, New York, I travel everywhere. But as soon as I land at Vancouver Airport, I see rain, and I'm like, yes, home. People always ask me, they say to me, you grew up, in India, in a tiny village, and now you are a Food Network person. How did that happen? And I would like to share that story with you, and I'll try to make it very quick because I know there's time's ticking. One thing I noticed that fear of unknown and taking risks. Those things were really odd. I think I was born with a disability. I don't know if I see a risk. If I see a risk, I can't recognize it. I'm like, whatever, sure, whatever, I'll tell you a story, you'll laugh at it, you think she's crazy. But, craziness brought me here, so what the heck, This is what I say. That's me. See, I'm the only one smiling. My mom used to say to me, Mom, why are you always laughing? Why are you always smiling? Girls in the village aren't supposed to be smiling. You got to be very obedient, and so you can be a good wife one day. And after having 2 divorces, trust me, that obedientness didn't work for me. That's me. I was around 6 years old. I don't know how old I was, because I don't know my date of birth. I don't know the month or the year or the day, because as soon as women are born in India, they're rejected, because they're like, oh, this woman. And it was the best gift ever. My friends turned 30, they cried. I have no idea. And then they turn 40, they're freaking out if they're single because they have to find a man and they haven't got kids. And I had my daughter when I was 18. I don't care. I had no idea how old I am. So it's perfect. It's awesome. I love it. So I was born in Punjab, up north. Beautiful, beautiful India. But growing up, I always knew as a young girl that was not going to be my life. Something really odd. I always knew at a 6-year-old. And I grew up, we were so poor, and I went to bed hungry for the first 14 years of my life, and not having proper clothes, not having proper shoes. I remember sewing my shoes when I went to school. And when you have all that stuff happening, it changes you. It changes you to your core. And now my production home comes from New York, and they come and see my tiny home in Coquitlam. And I have this tiny Volvo, and I have nothing brand name I own. And they look at me, they're like, are you kidding me? You should be living in a mansion and driving one of those expensive cars. And for me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I am a celebrity chef or judge or whatever, because when you go through that hardship, you're grounded for the rest of your, you're ground, in your soul for the rest of your life. And I'm so blessed for that. And I will not change a thing, Growing, yes, I was poor, it was all fun, but I remember, I still loved climbing the rooftops and playing marbles and playing flying kites and playing cricket. And I would climb the rooftop and the mango trees. My mom would be standing here, like in the down of the tree, and she would have a stick and she would beat me up. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, you know. So I would go back again, and it didn't matter. So don't beat your kids, doesn't work, trust me. You know? And then I knew, I knew that. I knew I lived every day to the best, you know. I could not change. If you give me millions of dollars and say, Val, can we take your childhood? No, never. I just loved it. I still remember the fresh cow dung, and I still remember the fresh, you know, it was fun. It was so amazing. You know, you watch the Slumdog Millionaire movie, the kids were having the balls. They were having just a fabulous time, and I just loved every single second of it, because I knew one day my father was going to come home and he was going to say to me, we found a husband for you. And I knew that. So I wanted to live my life. I knew that I would be handed down from one family to another family, so I lived every day. So that's exactly what happened. My dad goes, oh, we found a guy for your cousin, and your cousin's dad doesn't want him, so I think it'd be perfect for you, you know. I'm like, yippee, you know. So as a teenager, I came from India to Canada. And this was a lesson my mom said to me. That changed me. That sentence was so powerful because she meant it. When I came here, it was not a happy marriage. And I knew that I couldn't count on my parents. I always knew, and I had a beautiful daughter, and my mother-in-law goes, I can't believe you're so ugly and you get to give birth to only girls. And then I went back to school and I took biology. It's a sperm. I was like, I was rejected the day I was born, so rejection doesn't do anything for me, you know? And so upon my arrival, very soon I became a single mom. I was disowned from my family, but I decided to walk away from an arranged marriage. I was still like 19 or 20, whatever years old, and I could understand English. I thought white people spoke really fast. And now white people look at me, they're like, well, you've been here for so long, how come your accent is so thick? Well, whatever, you know. I always knew that education was the key. I went back to school. I would clean people's home during the daytime with my daughter. And I went back to adult learning school, and I took English, and I fell in love with education. And then I got my master's in education. I never looked back. And when I was doing master's, one thing led to another, and I took time to redo all the lessons I had learned growing up, that women can't do this and women can't do that, and I'm so sorry, I'm not bashing, hopefully men, I love men, and I'm single, I'm looking for one. I always knew, and so I started giving cooking classes, I started doing catering, and that's how I paid for my education. And one of the things I thought, I'm going to call the city TV producer, and I'm going to say to him, because they used to have city cooks, this is like 6 years ago. I know it's only 6 years ago. And I called the producer, I said, I would like to be on TV, because you have this cook show, whatever, they had Simi Sarah was doing something, and the producer's like, are you a professional chef? I said, well, listen, I've been cooking since I was 6 years old. And he goes, how'd you get this number, I love rejection. So I called, I went back, after 3 weeks, I contacted him again. I said, listen, I don't have a restaurant. I don't have a professional chef. Every time, I've been cooking since I was 6 years old. Every time I made a mistake, my mom would slap on my hand. And if Gordon Ramsay wouldn't call that chef's training, I don't know what you white people say. He goes, okay, fine, whatever, come over, So then I thought, it would be so much fun to write a cookbook. Like, what the heck, why not? Sure. And because I was giving cooking classes, and people were saying that they eat Indian food, and every time they eat Indian food, they feel so bloated, but your food is so amazing, it's so great, and health benefits, you feel so good after eating your food, you have a cookbook. Where do you want to begin? I grew up in India in a village. Where do you want to begin with the cookbook? So I called White Cap Cookbooks, who did cookbooks only for celebrity chefs from Food Network. And I thought, one thing, I'm like, you need to surround yourself with the best if you want to be the best. So he did the same thing. He said, do you have a restaurant? I'm like, no. Are you a professional chef? I'm like, no. He goes, how did you get this number, actually? So one thing led to another. I gave him a recipe, no butter chicken, which I wrote it with my friend Corinne. She's sitting here. So I wrote a recipe, and I used to have a proposal, which was like a really long proposal. I brought it down to one sentence, that I can teach you how to make an amazing food in less than 20 minutes. So I created this no butter chicken recipe, which is to the day, after 18 months, it's been a top search recipe in the US. And that recipe got me my first gig. My first cookbook became a national bestseller. We did a second one. And now as a single mom, so look back, so now I have a show, and I'm so blessed, and it's so amazing. And now my producers they work with my executive producer writes for Rachel Ray, and they all come to New York. We film my shows, Spice of Life, here, and it's such an honor to highlight Vancouver. So people in New York and people in LA, people in Boston, wow, we had no idea how beautiful Vancouver is. This is my home. So amazing to highlight that. I love you guys, and you guys rock. Yeah.